Hey everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, along with my buddy and my partner in crime, Chris King. Christopher, good afternoon to you, sir. Some headlines in
Jim.
sports today. You've got something from the winter meetings in West Palm Beach down there, where the owners are meeting at the Breakers. And
Right, they're going to change the overtime, but only in the playoffs. But nobody wants to watch the Jets and Jaguars go to multiple possessions in overtime anyway during the regular season. So it's a change, that probably needed to come into play after we saw what happened this past January in the divisional round, where the Chiefs took the ball and went down the field and scored. The funny thing that I see out of all this is the Chiefs fans are complaining that when they pitched the rule change, what was it, 3-4 years ago, after Brady won the AFC title game that way, it didn't get changed. But now, because Buffalo lost and Josh Allen didn't get a chance to drive down the field, all of a sudden, the Chiefs have been wronged and they should have reinstituted this rule back then. But the difference between these situations, besides the fact that nobody cared about it then, was the fact that Buffalo wasn't the one that came up with this rule change concept in the first place. It was the Colts and the Eagles, and the Titans had a rule change of their own that they proposed. In 2018, it was the Chiefs who came up with they wanted the rule changed after they lost.
right.
But everybody wants to overlook that part because, revisionist history and all.
For sure. But prior to what happened to the Chiefs and up to today, there's been, I think, last maybe 12 teams have offered up their own variety of reasons of what to do for, to the competition committee for overtime changes. So it's been in the works for a long time. And, I think it was really the sun shined on at this time in large part because we had those crazy wild card games where things happen and people, at home were not happy about it, as well as the players and the owners weren't happy about it. So, finally it gets fixed, and, at the end of the day, it gets fixed. So, Chiefs fans, live with it. Okay. You'll learn to live with it. You'll learn to love it.
Yeah, I'm sure even Steen will be, as much as, he's a Chiefs fan and a big part of Chiefs Kingdom, I think even he understood the concept that, this rule needed to be changed. Michael, I don't live in New York State anymore. I don't live in, and even when I didn't live in Erie County. So the public offering for that stadium, that'll fall on other people. But I mean, and that's another thing that irritates me, is you see a lot of people complaining about all the public money that's going to be put into this new stadium in Orchard Park. And, the government should have better things to do with their money and all this other stuff. The bottom line is there's 28 teams out of the 32 in the league that have stadiums that are funded, at least in some form or fashion, by the general public. I mean, the only 4 teams that don't are the Jets and the Giants at MetLife Stadium. And, of course, SoFi, because Kroenke has $8 zillion in his pocket, being married into the Walmart family and everything else. So he could afford to do that.
The Washington franchise, the stadium was built by Jack Kent Cooke. It was finished by Dan Snyder. The land was owned. The only lease they have has to do with the actual physical infrastructure around it. In other words, roads that were built to get you there. So their lease with the state of Maryland has nothing to do with the actual payment of the stadium or any of that stuff. But you're right. There aren't that many people who do, and everybody else does. And it's, the way it's done usually is through a tax which is paid for by the people who, it's because user tax usually. That's means that basically what you're doing is the people who would go to the games are likely to be the ones who are spending more money. And if you want to talk about um, getting, Chris, you just brought up the point about the Jets and the Giants, right? At the Meadowlands. I have a friend who was a lifelong New York Giants fan whose wife said that if he were to actually, he had season tickets till they moved to the new MetLife Stadium, where the Giants, his 4 season tickets to the Giants for just the PSL, right, would have been $45,000 just for the PSL. That doesn't count the tickets. That simply just counts the PSL. Now, here's the crazy part. That PSL for the 4 Giants seats would be sold again for the 4 Jets seats who, on the week that the Jets are there. So they double sold that seat. Same thing Kroenke did in at SoFi in Los Angeles. It's crazy. He now has one lovely man cave, which he spent because he's not going. And people, look, I understand the tax situation, folks, but it's part of living in and wanting to have Major League Sports in your town. It's just
because otherwise you won't have a team because they'll go somewhere else where people will throw that money around. I mean, just look at how many times we've seen the Raiders move. Yeah, yes. I was going to say. Or ask St. Louis.
Well, St. Louis actually won a case. Well, no, they didn't win the case. They got a settlement of, I think it was $750 million from the league, which was kind of under the radar talk about. And what that was is they put up, a serious amount of money to build another stadium for the Rams, and then Kroenke moved to LA. So
I mean, even going back to when the Cardinals left in '87.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When Bidwell left town.
Right.
I mean, so they've gotten jilted twice too.
They have, and some of these stadium leases are totally crazy, and you do have a right to find out what's going on. Pay attention to that. But politicians can be smart in how they do it, and now most of the time you're getting buy-in from the owners, so that's a good thing. So there's that.
And Michael, no, you'll never see a dome in Buffalo. I understand that they could potentially host a Super Bowl then, but there's so much to be said for the atmosphere in late December and early January when there's 3 feet of snow. It's
in your seat.
It's -5 degrees, and there's 30-mile-an-hour winds with lake effect snow coming in. Just if you don't believe me, go back and watch the 1992 AFC divisional playoff game between the Raiders and Buffalo, and just listen to the introduction by Marv Albert, where he's sitting there with Paul McGuire talking about, the temperature of balmy 0 degrees. With the wind chill, it feels like 25 below, and it snowed in Buffalo 28 of the last 29 days.
That's what you call consistency. Yeah.
And Jim, Michael had a question about those PSLs. He said, what happens when the Giants play the Jets on that PSL? Then what do they do? Who gets precedence with the seat?
That's a good point. If it's a Giants home game, the Giants get it. If it's a Jets home game, the Jets get it.
That makes sense. So it'll be, I imagine it'd be the same thing at SoFi then.
Yeah. If the Chargers, yeah. Whoever's the home team, it's your ticket. So there you go. But by the way, PSLs are not new. I mean, the PSLs go all the way back to the days when, remember the Pontiac Silverdome for the Detroit Lions. I was thinking of Detroit Lenny and Chiefs at the same time. They got a mash up there, but yeah, the Lions, PSLs, they're PSLs in Baltimore, PSLs. Almost every new stadium has had some sort of PSL, not at the level of insanity that the Giants and the Jets did, but yeah, pretty amazing amount of money in that regard. Speaking of money, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to help you spend some and hopefully make some. All right, Caesar Sportsbook. March Madness promo. Bing, 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 bing. Here we go. Bet $20 or more on men's college basketball and get $200 free bet if your team scores a single point. Now, odds boosts and profit boosts do not qualify. And what you got to do is you got to use our special promo code WAWMAR2. That's Winners and Winers March 2. Okay. And all that information is in our show box below. As you always know, all kinds of cool stuff's down there. Check it out. And you remember, you must be 21 years of age to play, and always, always, always bet responsibly. So, with the concept of college basketball, we go to the hardwood. We go to Madison Square Garden, the 7th floor above Penn Station, the St. Bonaventure Bonnies, who, by the way, are no strangers to playing in Madison Square Garden, are taking on the Xavier Musketeers. And one quick thing, Chris, we talked about it in the pre-show. This, ladies and gentlemen, will be the final NIT after it started in 1938 that will be played in the Garden from this point forward. The wonderful folks at ESPN Marketing have decided they're going to move it around. So enjoy one last time at the Garden, the Bonnies and the Musketeers. Go ahead,
I personally
Christopher.
hate that concept of shuffling stuff around. I mean, there's so much history in the Garden itself over, like you said, the last 8+ decades. To move it to somewhere else, and even to keep it, if it's not a fixture somewhere and it's a rotating thing, it kind of devalues the whole point of the tournament, because everybody, when they get into the NIT, they've always thought about, our goal is to get to the Garden. Now, what's it going to be? Our goal is to get wherever we're playing this year.
Well, one other quick point to your point. For many years, and when I'm talking 40 or 50 years, frankly, there were teams that were better teams in the NCAA that would go to the NIT because that was a more prestigious tournament than winning the NCAA tournament. So, it's only been in the last, I would say, 30, 40 years that the NCAA has outshined the NIT. So, it is a tradition. And unfortunately, it's leaving the Garden and heading to parts unknown. What are your favorite lines there, Chris, as we move on?
Yeah, unfortunately, parts unknown in this case does not refer to downtown Newark, much to the chagrin of the late Bobby Heenan.
Right.
Michael said that way they can go to a bigger stadium and make much more money. And he said that's what it's all about. It's all about the dollar, the almighty dollar, in the case of moving this tournament. And unfortunately, in some cases, he's probably right. I mean, when money trumps tradition, it kind of really takes some of the shine off what's been a pretty good tournament. And
but
it's
you're
unfortunate.
not. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But what I was going to say is, you're not going to get a Final Four venue like a Lucas Oil Stadium or one of these larger buildings to bid on the NIT, because there's the NIT. They'll be fortunate if they sell out Madison Square Garden, and a lot of St. Bonaventure fans are going to be there, no doubt, because it's an upstate New York team. But 18,000 at the Garden, selling out, that's a pretty good deal. But Michael, you're right. It's all about the money, and that's what they're doing. They're moving it for the money. But the Bonnies are seemingly, according to Chris here, they're moving on past Xavier tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I like St. Bonaventure. They got into this tournament. They had to go to Colorado. Okay, they beat Colorado in the altitude. Then they had to go face Oklahoma down in Norman, and they beat them.
Wow.
Then they had to go to Charlottesville and face Tony Bennett. They beat the Cavaliers. So now what? So you beat 3 teams on the road. You don't even get a home game. Now you have to go to Madison Square Garden. You're facing a Xavier team that nobody likes. I know Xavier played better in their tournament games here than they did down the stretch. But you have to remember that before Xavier suddenly found themselves, they had lost 7 of 8 before beating Georgetown in their regular season finale. Then they had lost to Butler in the first round of the Big East tournament, and that's why they didn't make the field. Then they decided to get rid of Travis Steele as their coach. Jonah Hayes is 2-0 as an interim guy, but if you look, they barely got by Cleveland State in the first round of this tournament at home. They won by 4 as a double-digit favorite. They played better and they beat Florida, but then they were fortunate to skate by Vanderbilt in a game last week where the last 10 seconds took about 25 minutes because they couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing and had to do about 35 different replays. And they escaped there, but they didn't cover in that one either. Now they've got to face a Bonnie's team that doesn't have a ton of depth, but Bonaventure's got a ton of experience. All 5 starters, Osa Nasuniye, Kyle Lofton, Jalen Attaway, Dominic Welch, and Jaron Holmes are all seniors. They've been there. They've done that. They've been to the NCAA tournament before. They're not going to be intimidated by playing a Xavier team that's mediocre defensively. St. Bonaventure very good on the defensive end of the floor. They're 74th in scoring defense at 66 points a game. Paul Scruggs is not supposed to play tonight for Xavier. That's a big blow for them. Scruggs started 33 games this season for them and was a pretty effective player. If you look at his numbers, he logged, better than 30 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to replace a guy like that. He shot 48% from 2. He knocked down 31 threes. It's tough to replace that kind of experience. And I know that you can point to Jack Nunge or Nunge or however you pronounce the name, the guy that transferred from Iowa, and Zach Freemantle and all that. But those guys don't have as much experience and they don't have as much success necessarily. And let's face it, Xavier was just fortunate to get into a tournament at all with the way they played down the stretch. The Bonnies 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 overall. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a winning record. Xavier 1-7 in their last 8 against teams with a winning straight-up record, and they're 1-10 in their last 11 after a straight-up win. When you come right down to it, when you're 2-8 in your last 10 overall against the spread, I don't really have a ton of faith in you. I'm going to go with the Bonnies as they extend the run of their 5 seniors one more game and take it all the way to the end here at Madison Square Garden.
Marlo wants to know over 139.5.
I don't think so. I think it's going to end up under the number. The way St. Bonaventure plays defense, I know Xavier has scored more than 70 in each of their 3 games in this tournament, but nobody's going to consider Cleveland State or Vanderbilt the same kind of defense as the Bonnies. I'm thinking it's probably going to end up about 135 or so. I know a lot of things are pointing to a higher number. I'm just not sold on Xavier, especially without Scruggs. You look at the 3 games that St. Bonaventure's had in this tournament. They started high at 144 with Colorado. Then they went to 138 in the win over Oklahoma. And then the numbers fell completely off a cliff against Virginia. The final there was 52-51. So a total of 103 points. Talk about your rock fights there. Unless Xavier hits a bunch of threes, which is where St. Bonaventure is a bit susceptible, I don't see it getting up to 138. And you notice that number is actually ticked down because last night it was at 140.5 or 141. So it's trending back the other way. Xavier's not a great 3-point shooting team. They'll try to push the tempo. That might be the only way this gets up over that number. But if they play at St. Bonaventure's tempo, which they're 253rd in the country at 65.8 possessions a night, I think it'll end up falling short.
There you go. So the Bonnies will move on. And I assume that they're going to get some love from the Manhattan crowd.
One can only hope.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So we move from St. Bonaventure and Xavier to the other one, the Aggies from Texas A&M and Washington State. We got 2 big powerhouse conference schools here, the Southeastern Conference, Texas A&M, and the Pac-12 with the Cougars from Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, give credit to Kyle Smith. The Cougars have played good basketball in this tournament. They're 22-14. That's their best season in the 3 years that he's been up in the Palouse at Pullman. They've played very well in this tournament. They beat Santa Clara at home. Then they went and beat SMU on the road. Never an easy thing considering the Mustangs were undefeated at the Moody Coliseum. And then they went and they rolled over BYU in a game where I didn't think they were going to win, much less win that convincingly, because we all know how hard it is to win at the Marriott Center if you're not named Gonzaga. Here, though, I think, they're running into a Texas A&M team that's very motivated. They won 7 straight before losing to Tennessee in the SEC title game. Then they came out They've won all 3 of their games in the NIT by double figures. They beat Elkhorn State by 12. They beat Oregon by 15. They beat Wake by 15. Buzz Williams, apparently, after his team was passed over for the NCAA tournament, wrote a scathing 9-page letter to the committee detailing why they should have been in the tournament as opposed to, some of the other teams, cough, Michigan. Let's face it, Texas A&M is a team that is going to make things tough for Washington State. Washington State doesn't turn it over a lot, but they're facing a team that can definitely force miscues. The Aggies are 8th in the country in turnover percentage, forced at 23.9%. Neither team really has much of a big man group to talk about. So that's going to come down to guard play, really, when you get down to it. Texas A&M is 130th in scoring offense. Washington State's 154th. Washington State does not shoot the ball for beans. If you look, they're 327th in field goal percentage at 40.7%. They're 322nd in two-point shooting at 46.2. They try to make their money on the perimeter, but they're still only a middle-of-the-road team shooting out there at 33.8%. That puts them right in the middle of the pack in the country. Texas A&M defends pretty well. They're 79th three-point defense at 31.8%. They give about 6.7 threes a game. This one's going to be another rock fight, too. I mean, if you look, Washington State's 44th in scoring defense. Texas A&M is 84th. In the tournaments themselves, Washington State is giving up, I think it's 57 points a game. Texas A&M is giving up 58. Could be the first one to get 65 wins, and who knows if we'll even get there, given the way that we've seen things play out between these teams. In the end, I just think Texas A&M's motivation and their momentum down the stretch is going to be the difference. And like Neil said, it's a big time change because you're going it's a 3-hour time switch from out west to here, and it's a long trip from Pullman to New York City. Let me tell you, I drove once from Seattle to Buffalo. Let me tell you, 2,800 miles, even with a lot of open road, still not the most entertaining trip, especially when you're driving through Montana and you hit Montana at 7 o'clock in the morning and you get off the road at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And guess what? You're still only about halfway through Montana.
Right.
I think, Texas A&M will get the win here. They're 8-1 in their last 9 against the spread after a straight-up win. They're 7-1 in their last 8 after an ATS win. They're 6-1 in their last 7 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. That'll be a good game if you want to go to sleep, because I don't expect a lot of flashy offense by either team here. But kudos to both teams making it this far, because nobody would have expected it probably when the tournament field was announced.
No, and Texas A&M's not known for their basketball program. No shade on them. I have had 4 members of my family graduate from Texas A&M, so if I do say something, they'll find out about it, and I'll get hell for it. So I'm not going to.
Well, they just did, or they just heard you say it. Hopefully, they're
not basketball fans. So, actually, they're San Antonio Spurs fans. So we'll go with that.
Oh, that's even worse.
Well, once upon a time, it wasn't so bad.
This is true.
Now, not so much. So anyway, we bid adieu to there'll be at least one more game at the Madison Square Garden for the NIT before.
Yeah, do we know when that is? Do they have a date for that? I mean, I'm sure they do. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't know what date it is off the top of my head.
It's Friday night, I think.
Is it Friday?
I'll look.
I'll
look it up.
But it's Thursday. It's Thursday night.
Is it Thursday? It had to be, but tonight's Tuesday. You say, yeah, okay, because they can't keep them. I mean, they're not going to keep kids in New York for 3 days. That,
I'm just trying to find out when the TBC game is, so we know when we're going to talk about that excitement.
You know where to find it. Why?
That's Thursday too. Wow, look at that.
Oh, head to head.
Yeah. Ooh, boy, that'll be literally. Of course, the TBC game is on ESPN Plus. So.
Oh, okay. So you have to pay to see that one.
The NIT game will be on ESPN.
Yeah, my guess is that young Sheldon will outrate both of them together. So there you go.
There'll be literally hundreds of people tuning in.
Right, you can hear the thunderous applause of all the people. So anyway, You know, it's been a while since we talked about the NHL. Let's go over there. By the way, Chris, I got to say to you, you were right about the Hurricanes and the Capitals, much to my personal chagrin last night. Damn
I
me.
was surprised that it was that one-sided. In
Yeah,
all
so was
honesty,
I. I
but there were a
thought,
lot of one-sided games last night.
I thought to myself, well, wonder how the Caps are doing. I check my phone; it's 4-1. I go, no, I'm not gonna watch this. Why would I?
Well, don't forget they had that game when they led 4-1 earlier this year. Remember, and then they gave up like 57 goals in the third period.
Yeah, well, that's the Capitals for you. Okay, it happens.
Yeah, if you look though, there was 5 games yesterday. The winning team
blowouts.
scored 6 in 4 of them. The
Big,
losing team scored 1 in 4 of them.
good time to have the over.
And the only game that had a 1-goal margin was when Buffalo came back to beat the Blackhawks 6-5 in a game where they were down 3-0 after the first period. So thanks Chicago for blowing that one. Give the tying or the winning goal with 10 seconds left in regulation. Give the tying goal with 2:14 to go in regulation. And we talked about that yesterday about how the Blackhawks, were down to Connor Delia and Kevin Lankinen in net. Neither one of those guys really going to move the needle. But Chicago was ahead 4-0 in that game, a minute 21 in the second period.
Hey, Zach, from our Facebook page wants to ask a question.
The Hurricane. Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about Carolina tonight because they have to go to Tampa Bay. I believe it's going to be Antti Ranta getting the start tonight, which he hasn't been bad, but I don't know if you want to deal with Ranta against Vasilevsky. Tampa Bay, of course, they're fighting in that crowded Atlantic division where now all of a sudden everybody wants to be right clustered together, battling where a team can go from in the guaranteed playoff spots to a wild card spot on a daily basis. You look, Florida's got 94, Tampa Bay's got 88, Toronto and Boston both have 87, and oh yeah, they're playing each other tonight. So that'll be entertaining. Carolina, they've got a little bit of a margin. They're 5 points ahead of Pittsburgh. I'm just a little bit concerned about having to go to Tampa, playing the second game of back-to-back. Tampa seemingly found a little bit of momentum now as they've won back-to-back games after losing 6 out of 8. And they scored 4 against the Islanders the other day, which broke that long stretch where they weren't scoring goals at all. In their previous 4 games, they had scored a total of 7 goals. I'm going to lean for... Oh, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say one of the things that people kind of forget about the back-and-back, especially when you're going from D.C. to Tampa, right? They left D.C. likely somewhere around midnight. They got to Tampa sometime around 3 o'clock in the morning. They got in their hotel sometime around 4 o'clock in the morning, and now they're playing it. Puck drops at 7 o'clock. So you are a little bit, gassed, even though you're as talented team like Carolina, and you might have been able to coast a little bit after you got ahead last night against the Caps. But your point about Vasilevsky and the fact that Tampa Bay had some time off, they haven't played since the weekend. So that's not a good recipe for taking back-to-back wins.
And plus, you have to throw in that Jesperi Kotek. I could always have a tough time pronouncing it. Kotkaniemi was injured last night with 2 seconds left in regulation when he got hit by Lars Eller. Apparently, he put no weight on his leg when he left the ice last night. Rod Brindamore in the post-game press conference saying, quote, "I don't know the extent, but it's not good. He's injured. I don't know how bad, but he's definitely going to be out. The game was over. Let's just get it over with. 2 seconds left. I don't like it, but nothing you can do about it." I know that he's not a big contributor. He's a third or fourth line guy right now, but he's been playing well. But taking a blow like that's definitely going to hurt their depth. You're going to have to juggle lines, and Tampa Bay is a good hockey team.
Right. Two-time defending Stanley Cup, so not bad.
And
the
Zach,
Wild and the Flyers.
And Zach, don't feel bad. That Blackhawks meltdown screwed over a lot of people. I wasn't happy about it because I picked Chicago yesterday too. Not just because I hate the Sabres, even though I'm from there, uh, but I thought Chicago would win that game. I was just disappointed with the way they played after building that big lead. But yeah, moving on, like we said, Minnesota and the Flyers. If there's a team that we like to fade, it's the Flyers because why wouldn't you? They're terrible. The
Well,
Broad
they're
Street
East Coast
Bullies.
version of the Coyotes. Yes.
Yeah, the Broad Street Bullies are no longer. It's now the Broad Street Babies because if we're going to be alliterative, the Broad Street Wimps doesn't really have the same ring to it.
Nah.
Minnesota's 40-24-4. They play well at home ice. The Flyers are terrible. It doesn't matter if they're at home or on the road. They're equal opportunity losers. They're 13-20. Carter Hart's 13-21-7 with a 304 goals against, a 909 save percentage, and 1 shutout. Marc-Andre Fleury going to get the start tonight for Minnesota over Cam Talbot. It's about time. That's why you traded for him.
Mm-hmm.
Fleury 20-21-5 with a 293 goals against, a 908 save percentage, and 4 shutouts. If you look, it's a mismatch when it comes to putting the puck in the net. The Flyers are 30th in goals for at 2.59. They're 24th in goals against at 3.47. The Wild 4th in goals for at 3.63. They're 19th in goals against at 3.09. The Flyers 13-39 in their last 52. They're 14-42 in their last 56 against teams with a winning record. They're 6-20 in their last 26 after allowing 5 goals or more in their last game. The Wild have won 6 straight, all those coming at home. They're 13-3 in their last 16 against the Metropolitan. They're 39-12 in their last 51 as a home favorite. Let's face it, if you're a Flyers fan, it might be time to burn your jerseys or, hope that you can find a reincarnation of Bobby Clark or Bernie Parent or anybody that, was worth a damn for the Flyers before, because after trading Claude Giroux, you have to wonder what is left of this Flyers team. And they have to face a Minnesota team that averages 3.97 goals a game on home ice. Flyers put up only 2.31 goals a game on the road. It's going to be a rough night for Philadelphia. I know Matthew was talking about how the Flyers gave him a scare the other night when they played Nashville. They jumped up 2-0 in that game after one period. They were up 3-1 and then proceeded to lose 5-4 because the Flyers cannot deal with success.
There's Carter Hart numbers. Surprised they didn't go after him at the trade deadline. True. Michael says the Preds scared me the other night against the same Flyers. And hey, good to see you, Super Sly. Welcome to the house.
As far as not going after Hart, I don't think Philadelphia is willing to give up on him because he's only 23 years old.
No, that's
and actually the Flyers have made a change. It will not be Carter Hart. He is apparently out with a nagging injury now. So that makes it even better because guess what? That means you're going to see calling Dr. Jones. That's right, Martin Jones, who nobody wants to have in net if they can help it, unless you're the opposing team. Then you'd love to see him suit up because Martin Jones has been brutal this season.
Not to be confused with the guard who used to play for the Knicks. So
that's true. I'm just going to dig up Martin Jones' numbers here. He started the other day against Nashville. He's 8-13-3 with a 338 goals against and a 901 save percentage. He has just 2 wins in his last 10 starts. He's 2-7-1 in that stretch. And to get those 10 starts, you have to go all the way back, starting on January 22nd. So he's made 10 starts in 2 months. Now he's going to make back-to-back starts.
Michael's our resident chat comedian. Don't forget to tip your waitresses. Michael's going to be here all week. Thank you, Mike. All right. Let's move on. The Panthers.
We're going to move on to Montreal and Florida.
No. And the game is being played in Sunrise.
Yeah, so it doesn't bode well for Montreal. Of course, there haven't been a lot of games that boded well for Montreal this season, but they have to go on the road to face a Florida team that we all know has had a ton of success at home. Montreal has been terrible wherever they go. I mean, they've played better under Martin St. Louis. I'll give them credit for that.
Right.
Give credit where it's due. The problem is they're still the worst team in the league. And that's saying something when you're in a league with the Sabres, among other teams. Jake Allen, 7-17-4 with a 309 goals against. I think I messed up his save percentage. There's no way in hell it's 926. It is actually 908, so I mistyped it. With 2 shutouts for Montreal. Andrew Burnett confirmed this morning it'll be Sergei Bobrovsky back in net. He's 31-6-3 with a 257 goals against, a 916 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. It's about time Bob got back in the net. I know Spencer Knight started both nights of a back-to-back over the weekend. Got smoked by Toronto on Sunday after having to rally to beat Ottawa on Saturday. So it'll be a good boost for them to get Bobrovsky back in goal. Stupid Southern Utah. I thought they were going to play better than that. Fresno State played motivated basketball. Where was that during the regular season?
They didn't do the Thunderbirds name proud. I'm ashamed.
At least it stayed under the total, but I expected more from Southern Utah than 48 points. So I apologize for that. I would have expected a much better showing from the Thunderbirds than the stellar 19 of 61 performance shooting from the floor and a dozen turnovers. It just was disappointing. They got belted out of the gate and never got back in it.
Didn't bounce back. Looking at this game, Chris. No, I was just going to say, looking at this game, and you talked about the standings. This is a game, if you're the Panthers, you better damn well win. Because, these are 2 points that you need, and this is low-hanging fruit. If you can't, with Bobrovsky in the net, take this one, you got problems, boys and girls.
Yeah, especially when you look at the next couple of lines there. The Canadians are last in the league in goals for. The Panthers are first. The Canadians are second worst in goals against. I mean, Florida's middle of the road. I'm not going to take that away from them. But here's the big stat is when you come to play in Sunrise, Florida's offense, it's like, you added some nitrous to your car because Florida averages 4.02 goals a game normally. At Sunrise, it goes up to 4.63. By the same token, Montreal gives up just under 4 goals a game on the road, 3.94. And you're right. If Florida wants to be taken seriously as a contender, they have to come out and win this game, and they need to win this game convincingly. Not like we saw the other day against Ottawa, where they were down 3-0 in the second period, had to come back and win in a shootout. Not like they played against Toronto, where they got smashed into the ground 5-2. And there's a lot of big, heavy numbers on the hockey docket tonight. Just looking around.
Lane has a quick question for you. Panthers, Bruins, Penguins, Wild on the money line.
Well, I'm never going to endorse picking the Bruins because they're playing Toronto. So I tend to stay away from games that the Leafs are involved in just because of a personal interest in the game. I think that Boston probably has a slight advantage because they're at home, and the Leafs have Peter Mrazek starting again because they don't have Jack Campbell back yet.
Yeah.
The Wild I like. I mean, we talked about that. The Panthers, obviously. And the Penguins are playing the Rangers. The good thing for Pittsburgh in that case is that they're playing at the Glass House because when they played at Madison Square Garden last week, it was the Rangers who jumped all over Pittsburgh. And what was it, a 5-1 victory?
Yeah, it was a very un-Penguin-like performance.
And, of course, Pittsburgh coming in off that narrow 11-2 win over Detroit the other day.
The eke by.
Yes. Yeah, they eked it out with a late goal.
Yeah.
Or 6.
Yeah.
But, more power to them.
That's like playing the entire game on a power play.
Pretty much. I mean, that just shows you how bad Detroit's goaltending has been at times this year.
Jeez, yeah. Well, tell you what, we got the NBA coming up, and a couple of questions on the NBA. A lot of Bulls fans here today. So anyway, let's.
Yeah, the
Gotta be
Bulls were another
someplace,
team
right?
that disappointed me yesterday with the way they played.
Yeah.
I expected better, especially against a Knicks team that's basically going nowhere.
And Billy Donovan's got to get that team together quick. And
Yeah.
Miami's fading too, so who knows what's
Yeah,
going
of course. I said Miami. I was going to fade them because they've played so badly, and I said take Sacramento plus 85 points, and then of course Miami wins by 23. Just
Okay,
to say, ha! Take a look at that. We can beat a bad team.
Washington is the Eastern version of the Lakers. You fade them.
Yeah, I know the Bulls are playing the second game of back-to-back. You can call me a glutton for punishment here because I'm going to lean on them to right the ship here because, like Jim said, with as crowded as the Eastern Conference playoff standings are right now, and let's face it, they are crowded. If you want to get one of those guaranteed spots and not get stuck in play-in hell, the Bulls currently stand one game ahead of seventh place Cleveland. Now they're tied with the Raptors for the 5th and 6th spots. So they need to start winning games. And what's even worse is, I don't know if you've seen the standings, Jim. Miami is first.
Yeah.
Then Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Boston are tied one game behind.
It's like a NASCAR race with 3 laps left to go.
Yeah.
They're drafting and waiting for something to happen.
It's like Talladega. I'm just waiting for the crash where it wipes out half the field.
Waiting for one of the teams to crash and the rest of them to fly by. Only need, and we're only 3 weeks away from the season ending. So, right. At this point, if somebody gets hot for a week, they could salt away. They could make that run.
Yeah, because you have to figure there's a lot of teams that only have 6, 7, 8 games left in the regular season. So you win 3, 4 in a row, you're in good shape. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you don't, of course, you could be tumbling down into the playoff hell or play-in hell or everything else.
Right.
So this is basically a must-win for Chicago. I mean, Washington is 12th in the East. They're 5.5 games back of the Hawks for the final spot in the play-in tournament. So they're basically, ready to mail it in. Just taking a look here at the injury report, see if there's anything exciting. Alex Caruso probable for the Bulls. Zach LaVine is questionable with a sore knee. So watch out for that with it being the second game of back-to-back in case they decide to rest him. Of course, for the Wiz, you won't see Bradley Beal, who everybody knows is out. Vernon Carey Jr., Kyle Kuzma is still out with tendonitis in his knee. Everybody else is down in the G League. It boils down to, Chicago has a better offense than Washington, especially without Beal. They're slightly better defensively. The Wiz are 5-17 in their last 22 after a straight-up win. I know that they beat Golden State the other day. So what? We saw Memphis destroy Golden State yesterday. And like Matthew said earlier, Taylor Jenkins is going to get some votes for Coach of the Year. Interesting stat I saw, Jim, is the Grizzlies are 18-2 this year when Morant doesn't play.
Yeah. How about that?
A 900 win percentage without your best player. Am I worried about Porzingis? Well, I mean, Porzingis will get his points. The concern, of course, will be, can anybody else score any points for Washington? Now, of course, I'll say that, and Porzingis will score, 65 points and shoot, 27 of 28 from the floor and grab 45 rebounds. Everybody will be thinking of Bill Russell. But in the end, I just think that Chicago, even though they're playing the second game back-to-back, the game means more to the Bulls. They've got to win this one in order to right what's been a listing ship. They're 8-3 against the spread in the last 11 meetings, and they're 8-2 in the last 10 in Washington. Don't get me wrong, Porzingis will get his, but I don't trust the rest of the Wizards' rotation to bail him out. And their defense is, weak, and that's probably being generous.
Well, Billy Donovan knows if he wants to get himself in a position where he doesn't have to look into a situation of playing a 3-4 or 4-5 or one of those kind of situations. Try to get that number one seed if at all possible. Because
Yeah,
playing at the
they're
United
4.5
Center,
back now of
yeah,
the top seed. They're
yeah,
still now they're 3.5 behind the Bucks for the Central Division.
yeah. So if they can get at least, I mean, playing at the United Center, they're a much better basketball team. I know that's Captain Obvious. So speaking as Captain Obvious, they are better at the United Center than they are on the road. So there you
Just
go.
in breaking bulletin.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of our other favorite fade team, ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the Los Angeles Lakers. That's
The
right.
Los Angeles Fakers.
Yep.
And yeah, I know Jokic, like Michael said, Jokic had a triple double last night. And, I make fun of Tim because of he pretty much that's a standing thing for him. Whenever the
Right.
Nuggets play, he puts money on the triple double for Jokic. In this one, let's face it, this game's in Dallas. The Mavs are 26-12 there. The Lakers are bad. Doesn't matter where they are.
Everywhere.
They're
Yeah.
much worse on the road, 11-25. Now, I know Dallas doesn't score a ton of points. They're 25th in scoring offense, but guess what? The Lakers are 26th in scoring defense. Meanwhile, the Lakers' advantage offensively is negated by the fact that Dallas is second in scoring defense at 104.1. And let's take a look at everybody's favorite thing, the old injury report that shows you both Anthony Davis and LeBron are doubtful. So don't expect to see King James or AD on the floor. So you'll get to see Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook combined to shoot the ball 45 times and probably make about 12. Dwight Howard is probable. So, hey, if you want to see bad free throw shooting, there you go. Meanwhile, for Dallas, Sterling Brown and Trey Burke are in the protocols. Tim Hardaway still out after having surgery on that broken foot. And Theo Pinson, the 14th guy in a 12-man rotation, out with a broken finger. Either way, Luka Doncic is still playing.
You look at that 11-25 on the road for the Lakers. You know what? People forget this. The Clippers games count as road games against the Lakers. So,
that's true.
So they can't even win in their own building when they're on the road. So it's not
and looking at their road splits, they give up 115.9 points a game on the road this season. Those are some ugly numbers. Opposing teams just wreaking havoc on what, let's face it, is a bad Lakers team. The Lakers just 4-12 since the All-Star break.
They could use Magic. Yeah.
They could use Kurt Rambis right now.
Right. With the glasses.
Or Michael Cooper. They need somebody that can play defense that has some grit.
That's right.
They've got enough flash. But
it's the hotline.
Yep. It's Kevin Harlan calling in to tell us what the latest is.
What the latest is going on.
But if you look, the Lakers since the All-Star break, 4-12, they're giving up 121.3 points a game in that stretch. That's a horrible metric. Opposing teams shooting better than 50% from the floor against the Lakers since the break. You're not going to beat a lot of teams when opponents are shooting 50+%. It's just not going to happen. And it's bad news for the Lakers here. I know that's a big number. But we're talking about a Lakers team that's going nowhere fast. They're going to be in the play-in tournament mainly by default. But the Mavs 4-1 in their last 5 as a favorite, 4-1 in their last 5 at home. The Lakers 2-7 against the spread in their last 9 on the road, and 1-4-1 in their last 6 as an underdog. You have to think that barring Rambis suiting up or Frank Brakowski or Jack Haley?
Yeah.
Man, they can go get Chuck Nevitt out of retirement. He sat on the bench a lot in Houston. I'm sure he's still got some fresh legs.
He's got some hops left.
Somebody
help. Help me, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, Byron Scott.
That's right. Any, Silkies, man, the whole group. You could Jerry West, bring him back. Anyway, all right.
We need Dale Goodrich.
That's right. Gail Goodrich was a phenomenal guard. He backs real quick. Gail Goodrich was the first major UCLA player to be picked under the John Wooden era in the NBA. So there you go, trivia.
I was waiting for you to say that he scored 6 points on you too.
No, I never played against him. He was way before my time. All right, so we're leaving Dallas and Los Angeles, and we're headed to 2 for the money.
Right. These are games we've talked about, well, except for the one.
Whoa, wait a minute. It's a deja vu all over again.
Yeah, we talked about the Bulls. We talked about the Wild. We talked about the Panthers. Now we'll talk about the Bucks. Obviously, this is a matchup of attrition because, let's face it, one of these teams will not be tied for second in the East when this game is over. It's just the way it works.
Right.
This game's in Philadelphia. The weird thing is Philadelphia has played better on the road this year, 25-12, than they have at home, where they're 21-16. You look, and Philadelphia has not played all that well of late either. They edged out the Lakers a couple games ago, 126-121. Then they beat up on the Clippers, not saying a whole lot. They lost to the Suns. Before that, they lost to the Raptors at home where they scored 88 points. Harden hasn't looked as comfortable of late as he did when they first started. And Philadelphia was a house of fire originally. They've kind of cooled off. Meanwhile, Milwaukee is the defending champs for a reason. And the injury report is pretty clean on this one. Giannis Antetokounmpo, probable. He was originally ruled as questionable. They moved it. The line moved accordingly because originally this was a 4-point line, I think. It's now 1.5. Could have gone down since then. He's the only guy that's considered on the injury report to talk about because Philadelphia's guys are down in the G League. DeAndre Bembry, the only other name on the injury report, he had knee surgery. He's done for the year. The bottom line is Antetokounmpo, Middleton, Holiday, all those guys have actually won something in the postseason. As good as Embiid's been, I know a lot of people are considering him as an MVP candidate, and Harden and everything else. The 76ers struggle in big games against quality competition. I'm going to look for the Bucks to get the win there and take the points.
All right, how about let's go in 4-4 for the show?
Yeah, Holiday, as far as I see, is ready to play. He's not on the injury report at all, so I expect him to be on the floor. This one's pretty easy.
Bonnies.
Yeah, we talked about St. Bonaventure and Xavier. We talked about Texas A&M, Washington State already. We talked about Dallas and the Fakers. Everybody loves the Fakers. And I like Nashville at home over Ottawa. I know Anton Forsberg is supposed to get the start for the Sens against UC Saros for Nashville. The Predators are the better team. They've played well at home. They should get the win here. And yeah, that's a big plus for the Bucks too, getting Lopez back because Lopez and Antetokounmpo provides a very good 1-2 punch in rim protection, which can't be overlooked. And if you get 30 minutes of Lopez a night at this point, the Bucks will take it because it makes Bobby Portis that much more dangerous.
It also gives them some boards.
In hockey and with everything else, I give people the option because if I tell people to take the money line, then they get pissed off because they don't want to play. They don't want to play the money line. If I tell people to play the puck line, then they get pissed off because the team only wins by 1. So I give the option for everybody. So that way you can pick what you're comfortable with. If you don't want to give a puck line, because I know there's people that are always worried that the game's going to end up 4-3 with a garbage goal, like we saw with the New Jersey-Washington game the other day, then I advise to go with the money line. Same thing with basketball. There's some people that don't want to lay 12 points, and I get that. That's why we put them both up. It makes it easier for you guys because that way you know what you're dealing with, and you can pick what's more comfortable for you. I just find it's easier that way for everybody I'm glad you understand, JR, because you'll be surprised how much grief I get about people going, well, you put all the money lines, and now, I don't want to have to put minus 1,000 on something. Well, nobody said you had to. It said somebody didn't want to lay X amount of points on whatever game. Nathan's right. Puck line gives you more value for your buck. The problem is there that you have to wonder, you're sweating it out late. Can your team get an empty net goal or whatever to salt it away? And some people don't want to deal with that. And I get that. I get it both ways. That's why I try to give the option to everybody because it's that much easier.
Yeah, the puck line also can get wonky.
I've seen some.
Yeah,
I've seen some ugly puck lines where it's like -2.5. It's like,
right.
who do you expect to blow out? I mean, you're not playing the Coyotes. You're not playing the Canadiens.
Right. So,
like, let me see. Let's see if I can find a wackadoo puck line on that game with Florida. I'm sure there probably is.
We think, Darnell. I think we got the Bonnies going, and I think Chris, you were on A&M, so you can see that right above. So
yeah, I went with A&M. I'm not saying that Washington State can't win. I'm just saying if they win, it's going to be a rock fight, and that's basically what it's going to boil down to. There you go. If you wanted to play the puck line on Florida Tampa Bay, or not Florida Tampa Bay, Florida Montreal, if you play it at -1.5, it'll be around -150. If you want to say that Florida's going to win 7-1 or something like that, -2.5 goes off at +105 to 115, depending on the sports book. So
Nathan has a question about Washington State first half under.
what's the number on it for the first half? I haven't looked. Let me see if I can find it real quick because it's probably.
And St. Bonnie on the money line.
I would stick with St. Bonaventure anyway, just because that's me. But let's see, first half total for that 64.
I do agree with. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd probably lean towards the under on that, just based on what we've seen. I'm just going to take a look here and see what Washington State's done in the first couple rounds, and then see what Texas A&M's done. Washington State's first half totals in this tournament against Santa Clara, the total was 50. Against SMU, the total was 59. And against BYU, the total was 61. Now, Texas A&M in this tournament, in their 3 games, their totals were 54. Okay, that one actually would have gone over. This was against Oregon, it was 65. And against Wake Forest, it was 47. So I would probably lean under in the first half. Because, especially with the way these teams play defense, you're not going to get a ton of points, I don't think.
That's for sure. Let's go to the menu, my man. Shot in the dark.
It's a full menu. Like we said, I'm going to stick with St. Bonaventure and Xavier.
We've seen a lot of these teams already.
Yeah, I'm going to look for them to stay under 139. Like I said, I know there's some people that are thinking it's going to end up in the 140s. If they do, hey, why not? I just don't think it's going to get there. Washington State, Texas A&M, under 132.5. And yeah, Michael's right. Playing in MSG, you're used to playing at home or in a venue that you're at least semi-familiar with. Playing at MSG, you got different sight lines and everything else. Jim, I'm sure you can attest to that. I'm sure you've been to the Garden a bunch of times.
I will say the interesting part of playing at Madison Square Garden, it's an old school gym in so much as the new buildings have a lot of light around the court. So the court is well lit, but you can see the crowd a bit. At the Garden, you can see the crowd. When you're shooting, you're looking directly into a lot of different shirts, and you're looking at a lot of crowds. So if the place is if there's not a lot of empty seats behind the goals, then you're going to be able to see a lot of stuff, and it does screw up your sideline a bit. It's not. I mean, if you're an NBA guy, you don't worry about it because you see it in most of the arenas. But if you're Texas A&M or any of these kids that are coming, it's the other thing too. Mentally, you're physically in the temple of basketball. So there's that. So coming out of the tunnel at MSG is kind of like a religious experience.
So very,
Darnell,
very good point brought up there.
We'll get to your stuff in a minute there, buddy, on football. We'll get to you in a minute.
No, I'll get to it right now because I think it's a joke. Because sure, you've got 2 fast receivers. The problem is Tua can only throw the ball about 25 yards. So if you're going to try and run fly patterns all day long, Tua's not going to get the ball. It's like Steen said, the other day when we talked about the Tyreek Hill trade. Will Smith, the like button. Exactly, you should. Yeah, Waddle and Hill, they're great. They're great receivers. The problem is, if you're running a 50-yard route, and like Steen said, Tua only throws the ball 38 yards, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. And, there's still a lot of good secondaries out there. There's a lot of schemes. And will Tua be able to hold up? I know they got Teron Armstead to play left tackle. The problem is Tua's left-handed. His blind side is at the right side. How are you going to block whoever they line up on that side? Buffalo's got Von Miller. A lot of these other teams have good wideout or good defensive ends as well and edge rushers. Patriots have Matthew Judon. I'm sure they would line him up on the right side. They're still going to have to find a way to protect Tua.
Well, there's one other point too, and that's the fact that you have to look at the offensive coordinators and what kind of routes do they want to run. Just because you're a fantastic wide receiver, which is, I'm not arguing either of those guys are good wide receivers. That's not the point. The point is, in a new system, what are they running? And as Chris said, somebody's got to throw it to them. So if you're laying on your back, throwing the ball straight up, it's not going to help you. So we'll see.
Right. I mean, sure, they'd be a good relay team in track, but it doesn't matter if you can't get the ball out. I look at Willie Galt when he played for the Bears.
Right.
That's a prime example.
He could outrun everything except for the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jim McMahon didn't throw deep, so.
No, he didn't. He could have stood there by himself and not hit him.
Yeah, moving back down the list here. Don't get me wrong. I think the Nets are going to win this game, especially now that the mandate's lifted, so Kyrie Irving can play at home. It's a big boost for the Nets down the stretch because otherwise he would have only been able to play one of the last 7 games, I think it is, that the Nets have.
Right.
But let's face it, they just lost to Charlotte at home with Irving. So I like to think the Pistons can hang around and make it life tough.
You like the Jazz twice.
Well, I like the Jazz in the top part, but I'm going to caution it with this. Watch the injury report for this game because there's a whole bunch of big names that are on it. Bogdanovich and Rudy Gobert are questionable for the Jazz. Paul George is questionable for the Clippers. He hasn't played since before Christmas. They say he's supposed to be back this week. It might be tonight. It might not. Just watch out for it. I also expect that game to stay under the total just because if those guys don't play, it's going to be a lot tougher. You're right, Sly. Even catching the ball on the line of scrimmage, Tyreek is dangerous. But would you rather be playing in an offense where Tyreek Hill can run 20, 25 yards on the field and get a pass from Mahomes? Or would you rather have Tyreek Hill catching a ball at the line of scrimmage where there's 11 guys around him or around the line that can get after him, catching the ball from Tua, who doesn't have the arm or the experience that somebody like Mahomes has? Plus, you have to figure, like we said, it's a new system. It might take time for them to get acclimated, like Jim pointed out. It's not going to be Eric Bieniemy's system anymore. And Miami doesn't have guys like Kelsey out there that can I know Gesicki's a good tight end, unless he never showed up for me in fantasy when I drafted him. But it's not the same thing. And until we see what they do on the field, it's hard to say. I don't know if it's necessarily gonna. It's not going to push Miami over the top, I don't think, in the AFC East. Will it push them into a potential playoff contention? Well, sure. I mean, they were playoff contention last year, mainly because of a soft schedule. Now the schedule might be a little tougher. We'll see how they respond. I mean, I give them credit for taking big swings, but you also have to wonder if this Hill trade doesn't pan out. Think about all the draft capital they just gave up. It's tough to replace that kind of young, cheap talent because let's face it, those first few years on a rookie contract are cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Would I rather have those guys on a rookie deal or be paying Tyreek Hill $30 million a year 2-3 years down the road? That's just my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Jim has no thoughts, so we'll move on.
Well, I mean, my only thought, as I said before, you've got a new head coach, you've got new coordinators, you're coming into a team that is not anywhere near the quality of the team that you just left. And this will be my final statement on it, and that is wide receivers, even elite ones, only make you better if you've got somebody who can throw the ball to them. And right now, one of the reasons that the head coach isn't there, Mr. Flores isn't there anymore, is because he didn't have the I guess the best way of putting it is he didn't have the confidence in the ability of Mr. Tua versus what the owner seemed to think of Mr. Tua. And last time I checked, Stephen Ross didn't really have much of a history of playing in the National Football League. So
yeah, I mean, if Miami had Justin Herbert,
right,
which is who Flores wanted,
right,
it would have been a lot different.
Then you would be saying, South Beach might have a football team.
Yeah,
but not so much this time. All right, moving on down the pike here. We got
I look for the Bucks and 76ers to stay under 232. That number actually went up. It was 227 yesterday. So people thinking we're going to have a shootout offensively in the city of brotherly love. Lex saying he wants some Philly cheesesteak and buffalo wings. Lex, don't ever call them buffalo wings. If you go to Western New York, I told Rachel that the other day. You might not make it out of the airport. It's like Jim says, if you go to China, you don't order Chinese food, you just order food. But that's a story for another time.
Indeed.
On the ice, I like the Flames over the Avs. This game coming to you from the Scotiabank Saddle Dome in Calgary, in Cowtown. I just think the Flames, we saw them hang 9 on the Oilers the other night. This one could be a track meet. If Markstrom and Kemper aren't on their A games. So watch out. Might be the best game of the night.
Could be.
Islanders over the Blue Jackets. Columbus is mailing it in. The Islanders pretty much mailing it in too. Long way to go for either of those teams to get anywhere near the playoff picture. I like the Stars on the road over the Ducks. Of course, the Ducks fell off a cliff, losing 9 straight games. I just think Dallas will extend that streak to 10. And Carolina and Tampa, I look to be a 3-1, 3-2 type of game and end up under the total of 5.5. Ought to be an entertaining matchup between two very good teams.
There you go. All right, everybody. Let's just take a quick look at our Max Wagers team, and that is Midday Money with Sean Higgs, noon. Our buddy Allie Burns from 1 to 2. We're holding down the 2 to 3 spot. Then you get to see Back to the Window with Scott and Scott 3 to 4. Game time decision with Nick, Tim, and Detroit Lenny picking up the mantle at 5 and taking all the way to 6, rounding home and bringing you home, and rounding third and bringing you home. Also, in the show box below, there is all kinds of information on how to get free things from us, as well as how to get picks from Chris. If you want Chris's parlays sent to your email address, very simple. It's in the show box below, all of that, as well as, of course, our Caesars Sportsbook promotions, all down in the show box below, and how to follow us on social media. So by all means, check out the show box below. We greatly appreciate it. Final thoughts, Christopher, on this Tuesday as we get ready to get out of town here before we turn it over to the Straw Hat Brigade of Mr. Scott and Scott.
Well, I mean, of course, our thoughts go out to the family of former Ottawa Senators owner Eugene Melnick. He died yesterday at 62.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting to see what the Sens ownership looks like going forward. Of course, we'll have to see what Gary Bettman, of course, coming out saying today that cap manipulation isn't a problem in the NHL. if it wasn't a problem in the NHL, we wouldn't have teams like Vegas stashing guys on long-term IR so they could fit other guys under the cap. Will we see postseason salary cap down the road? Who knows? They probably need one because we've seen some of these teams use loopholes like that. I mean, not to point fingers at Tampa Bay, but the whole thing with Kucherov last year where he was on IR the whole year and then came out in the playoffs, they would have gone way over the cap. So
you're gonna have to buy. The problem with players is they make money, so it's kind of hard to get the players to buy in on that. That might be.
but I mean, the players are getting money anyway. They're getting paid whether they're hurt or not. It's just a matter
No, I
of
understand.
looping around the cap. I mean, if you look at Vegas right now, they're at $92.5 million, but they're technically under the cap because $14 million is on long-term IR.
Right. So it's what we like to say in sports, creative accounting.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how it works, boys and
That's
girls.
the term.
There you go. Creative accounting. All right. That's your economics lesson here today. That's all you're going to get from me. Chris is the guy with the math. I'm not. All right, boys and girls, it's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. We will see you tomorrow, same time, 2:00. Stay tuned. Actually, they're already started on Max
Wagers Network, the Ocho.
The Ocho, yes. The Spanish version of Scott and Scott.
Following that will be Cornhole.
Yeah, before Lenny, Tim, and the gang. So, all right, boys and girls, have a great day. Thanks a lot for coming by. We greatly appreciate having you. And we will see you tomorrow at 2:00 right here on the Max Wagers Network.